afternoon communication track Toastmasters. We are here at our final session for the communications track for the day, and I'm very excited and very pleased to introduce our speaker and presenter for this presentation. If you were at the Huddle last year, you had the opportunity to see our presenter provide what is probably one of the most memorable keynotes I have seen in a very long time. Dave Spencer works with a variety of different programs and groups, especially Ask Him All About His Tiny Habits program. Very eager to hear him always talk about that and very excited to hear his progress with it. But Dave does bring a myriad of experience to Toastmasters, not only with presenting and speaking, but also with area leadership, being a previous and current area director. Presenting professionally, captivating your audience, it is my pleasure to present Mr. Dave Spencer. Dave.
"30 seconds. That's how long you have to capture your audience's attention and let them decide whether they're going to listen to you any further or not." So, have you ever heard somebody speak? You went to a presentation and the speaker just captured you. You were just entranced. You were taken to another place. We've all been to speakers like that, right? Let me see your hands if you've been to one of those. You've heard one of those. What is it that they have? What is it that they do that makes that happen? Well, if you stick around with me, I guarantee we're going to give you that recipe by the time we're done. Hi, everybody. I have two things I need from you. Number one, I need you to turn on your camera because I need to see your lovely faces. That helps me know that I'm connecting, or maybe that I'm not connecting. The other thing that I need for you to do is show me your cell phone. Who has their cell phone? Somebody got a cell phone? Everybody hold your cell phone. If you have one, hold it up. Okay. Now, this is really, really important because it's absolutely necessary. Okay. If you've got your cell phone, then I want you to do this. I want you to text Dave Spencer 994 to that number, 22333. I'll give you just a minute to do that. It'll only take 25 participants, but right now we only have 18 in the room. So guess what? Everybody gets to participate. Everybody gets to play. Who's in? Raise your hand and let me know when you have got into that texting group. I see one. Anybody else? There's got to be more than just Tony and Sherry playing. All right, Tammy's in, good deal. All right. I need you to answer some questions for me. Are you ready? The first one is, why did you choose this session? Just go ahead and enter your answer. Just text it in, and we'll take a look and see here after we get them put in just exactly why everybody happens to be in this session instead of one of the other amazing sessions you could be at. Why this one? Right, that is the winning answer right there, because right now it's Dave is wicked awesome cool. It's got the lead. Anybody else got anything? Nobody wants having trouble falling asleep? Well, that's encouraging. Nobody wants to learn how to connect with their audience. All right, well, I guess my job's done then. All right, you ready for the next one? Here comes the next question. I should have had a little bit of music to play in the background. I could sing, but then you might actually go to one of those other sessions. See what we're getting. Has anybody responded to that one? Maybe I need to activate it. You know, technology is an awesome thing when it works. But I'm sure that you have really, really good reasons that you came here, and I'm sure that you have really good things that you want to take away from this. And my goal is to do everything that I can to let you walk away here with everything that you wanted to get. Okay, that's my contract with you. Because I think that anytime we get up in front of a group of people to talk, anytime we're going to deliver a presentation, our goal, our focus, actually our mandate, is that we exponentially exceed expectations. That's what we should start with. We shouldn't be worried about anything else but exponentially exceeding expectations. You have been invited by somebody to speak. You've been invited to give a presentation. Maybe it's an event planner. Maybe it's a situation at work. Maybe it's in the community. When you take that opportunity, your goal should be focused on speaking better than that, exponentially exceeding expectations. I've studied a lot of speakers. You know, maybe the ones that you were referring to that really captivated you, that really pulled you in. And this might be a really good time for us to apologize to Justin, because this could be so captivating that we may totally miss the whole keynote address this afternoon. That's what I hope it is. But the reason that those people that you may think of have that ability is because they connect. And that's what this is going to be all about. See, I think in order to really captivate the audience, it takes three things. Actually, not three things, but actually three general areas to focus on. And the first area that is absolutely important to focus on is who my audience is. If I don't know who my audience is, I don't know what I can bring. So as I think about my audience, the questions that I need to answer are, who are they? Who's the audience that I'm going to be speaking to? Because if I don't know who I'm speaking to, I can't exceed expectations because I don't know what anybody's expecting. So are they professionals? Because if they're professionals, if you're in a situation delivering a message to professional people, that's going to have an impact. Are the people you're presenting to learners? They just want to learn information. That's a different type of an audience. Maybe they're seekers. Maybe they are out there wanting to glean more information so that maybe they can fill in some of their gaps. I guess the next question is, what does that audience want? Because if I don't know what they want, then I'm not going to be able to deliver anything. Do they want to be motivated? Because that's one skill set. Do they want to be educated? Do they want to be inspired? What is it that audience is expecting from me? Because if I don't have a plan for how to meet those expectations, then I might as well stay home. The audience is actually giving you their time and entrusting you to bring something of value. That's why you're there, to bring that exponentially exceeding expectations. Maybe that audience has a problem that I can fix. Maybe the topic that I have is going to help fix a problem they have, or what kind of value can I bring to the audience? And a lot of times I'll think about, okay, if I were going to be in this audience, what would I want? What would I expect? And as I thought about the group of people that were going to be in this session, if I were one of those people, what I would want is some tools that I could take away. But actually, how are we going to find out what those expectations are? We can do surveys. Maybe you could do a pre-survey of your audience to find out what kind of information they want. You can ask the event coordinator of what exactly or what vein or what track are the people that you are hiring me to present to. What is it that they are looking for? And then reflect. Just let all of that float around and think about it and decide, okay, if this is my audience, how am I going to approach that? What am I going to do? That's one of the most important steps, is actually knowing your audience. Because if you don't know the audience, you don't know what to deliver. The second piece, or the second component actually, is when you get into building your presentation. And when I think about building a presentation, it reminds me of what you see there, baseball diamond. I usually look at it as trying to keep it very, very simple and maybe having three big main sections, big main points, like a baseball diamond: a first base, second base, and a third base. And so at each of those bases, I will actually take like a box. Imagine putting a box there with a whole bunch of things inside that box that I'm going to unpack. And as I unpack those, it's going to fill out that particular space. So I get up to the plate and I take that swing and I hit it out there as hard as I can. And I get to that first base and I talk about knowing my audience, because that's the first step that I have to know. When you come on that field, you are the expert. When it comes to putting together your material, the person that has brought you to this event sees you as an expert. You are the expert. When you're putting together those items, those things, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to have a whole bunch of fluff and stuff that doesn't fit. So keep your presentation simple. You could fill it all up with all kinds of data. Ever been to one of those conversations where the person just reads off data, 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 and pretty soon you're kind of, yeah, that's not very engaging, is it? So keep it simple. Keep your points simple and even. Use stories. I don't know if was anybody in Tony's weaving a story session? Tony, I know you were there. If you weren't, I would highly encourage you to go back after these sessions and watch Tony's video. It was amazing. He was right on. He gave some very, very practical steps that you can use to use stories. And stories are beneficial in our presentation because they will bring a connection, something that connects you to that story. You can use stories to illustrate a point. Tell a story, make a point. Or tell a story and make points throughout the story. The whole program could be the story. Or you can make a point and then use a story to emphasize that point. Stories are a very important part of putting into that plan. Compare and contrast. It's another little technique that you can use. Metaphors, analogies, similes, all of those things will take the information that you're presenting and package it in a way that it becomes more relevant. You're actually giving a gift to somebody when you are doing those stories, when you are comparing, when you are contrasting. Examples of using a baseball diamond. The value of threes. I know as Toastmasters we hear this a lot, but there is something magical about threes. The 3 points, 3 main topics, 3 words, 3 whatever. So if you notice on most of my slides, there's 3 points. Less is more. And when I say less is more, what I'm talking about is using, if you're having to use media like we are today, because we're in a virtual environment. Actually, when I set up this whole process that we're going through today, I was expecting that we were going to be doing a hybrid, that it was going to be live and that people were going to be watching on Zoom if they chose. And so I didn't even, my plan at that point was that I was not going to use any kind of media to support things, not media to support with slides and things. I was just going to use the conversation itself to be as engaging as possible. But then I found out on Monday or Tuesday of this week that we were going to be going completely virtual. And so then I had to reframe and remake all of the different things so that they would fit in this type of an environment. But if you are going to be using media, multimedia, PowerPoints, less is always more. If you want to find out what good slides are, there's tons of information on the internet about effective slides. And then rehearse. Rehearse, 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 rehearse. And then rehearse some more. What I usually do is after I get my points, I get them out there in space, and I kind of know what's in that box, then I think about that and I pull those pieces out and I look at them and I show them and I work through that in my head. Some people may rehearse in front of a mirror. How many rehearse in front of a mirror? You write out your speech and then you rehearse in front of a mirror. That's fine if you can get that down to a point where you're comfortable and confident with it. I usually rehearse in my head, walking through the paces, envisioning what it's going to look like or how it's going to come out. That is a lot easier for me to envision if I'm thinking about it from a public address standpoint than it is sitting behind a camera like this and connecting with somebody. It's a whole different ballgame. So those are the first two, and we actually got through them very, very fast. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to open it up for some questions, not questions. I'm going to get some input from you guys. When we talk about knowing the audience, what are some of the things that you have done or that you might encourage that we can do to understand who that audience is? Just come off mute and yeah, Sherry, go ahead.
A poll in advance to who your attendees will be.
Okay, and that would give you some insights as to what they might be looking for.
And what
Anybody
they
else?
already know and don't know, because then I can tailor my presentation around that.
Right, if you were working with your business group and you were using the tool that you showed us this morning, knowing what that business is and how it might impact them would be good information to have ahead of time, wouldn't it? Yeah, sure.
If you happen to know your audience already, you know some of the personal things that they might be going through, say it's a group of people that you work with or that you meet with, say it's your church, and you've been asked to come and give us a talk there. If you're active in that church, you might know some of the things that are going on personally with those people and as a group, and you can focus more on something that would address the whole group, what they're going through at that time.
And that would actually give you a point of contact that can help connect, right? Knowing some of that backstory. Anybody else got something? If you're doing an academic talk, you might be able to do some kind of a gap analysis, find out what people don't know, and then find out how to fill in that need. Tony, I saw you go off mute.
I'm thinking about it's talking to the organizer of the event, whoever is allowing you to speak to this organization, talk to them and try and get some insight from them on what your audience is going to be, because they're obviously going to be familiar with what the audience is, and that way you can talk to one person instead of trying to gather information from a whole bunch of people.
Good point. So now, like when Tony was doing his session today on stories, actually played a video of a storytelling event that he was at. And I'm sure that beforehand, Tony thought about who is this audience? What do they want? What's going to work for them? If I'm giving a message if I'm speaking at a Toastmasters club, I need to know, okay, what is my evaluator looking for? And then I set up my speech so that I can meet or exceed those expectations. Anybody else have anything with knowing your audience? Alta.
I was told one time that you should speak to everyone like you were trying to train or speak to your grandfather. Now, whether that works or not, I don't know. So you want to make things clear, but you don't want to talk down to them.
That makes perfect sense. There are, in my job, one of the things that I do is our new employee orientation. And the people that we have coming into our company a lot of times are from foreign countries. And so I have to actually think about what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, because that audience may not understand the things that an audience of people from Iowa would. And so keeping those things in consideration. So knowing the audience is a huge, huge component to being able to exponentially exceed the expectations. Anybody got anything else for that particular group? Sal, you doing good?
One of the things that I definitely would want to know, particularly in this crazy society right now, in that group I'm speaking to, I'd like to know what their political or religious beliefs are. That way I'm not going to be stepping on somebody's feet, unless I'm trying to stir them up. But you certainly want to know where their heads are at emotionally, and that's religion and politics.
Right. Tammy, you got anything to add to that one? So you guys are the ones that have all the information. You guys are the experts. You guys are the Toastmasters. You guys know this stuff. For me, being here, it's like, I'm speaking to the choir, right? So when we talk about the planning, when we talk about getting your stuff, your ducks in a row, and knowing that you are the expert on that material, what does that mean to you? What is that, when you think about that, and you know what your audience is, you know who you're going to be speaking to, and you start assembling the pieces and doing your research, does anybody have any input on what that looks like for you?
Dave, I think sometimes it can be useful to start at the end and figure out what your goal is. And then you can kind of work backwards and figure out what steps you need in order to get to that point at the end.
You begin with the end. Mark out your points. And I think it's important too that when you are planning your material that you've really front loaded. When you start in that presentation part, there's some things I think that help move it along. So planning those events, putting that into place. Anybody else have something for that particular discussion point? All right.
I'm a big one for really wanting to map out how I want the presentation to go before I really put a lot of points into it. I mean, I'll put some points into it, but I really want to map out in my head how it's going to go first.
And then maybe identify those main points that fit that and then build out from there. All right. And then it actually comes down to the actual presentation of the material. See, I think if I know the audience, if I know what they expect and I know what I'm going to bring, and I have my material and I connect with the material and I'm connecting with my audience, then what my job is to be the conduit that brings the two together. I'm going to take the material and I'm going to connect it to the audience and bring them together. And if I don't have the connection with the audience, that makes the connection with the material a little more tenuous. I can know all the information, but if I don't connect with the people, have you ever been there? Have you done that? You've been to it, heard somebody speak. One person comes out, can give the same information, but because of the way they connect, it is entirely different than somebody who comes out and just presents material. You ever notice that? Am I the only one? Yeah. There's a difference. You can feel the difference. All right. Let's take a look here at connecting the next set of dots. So here you are, you're the connector. This is where you realize that you are the expert, and then you need to act like it. In the session before, was anybody in Matt's session? Yeah, a few of us. Yeah, a lot of us said in that session that when somebody comes on stage or when somebody is presenting, we want to see them be confident. We want them to be that communicating of confidence through our body language, through the things that we do, are all going to instill confidence in the audience that this person knows what they're talking about and they're going to bring me something that is of value. So just understand, if you are in that position, you are there because you are the expert. Now sometimes, I'm just going to be very transparent, I don't always feel that way. Have you ever heard of a thing called like imposter syndrome? Anybody heard of that? Where you're afraid that somebody's going to realize that maybe you don't know what you think you know? Imposter syndrome? Nobody? Just me? I'm the only person in here that ever has suffered from imposter syndrome. You're in a position where you're going to do something and you're like, well, why me? Why am I the guy that's got this information? Why are they going to listen to me? Who am I? Nobody's ever felt that? Wow. You guys are pretty amazing if you've never felt that. But when you get up there and you are in that position to be able to connect with people in a way that is potentially going to impact their lives and set maybe a whole new trajectory, you have to go into it with the confidence that you are the expert and you need to act like it. What are some of the things that you can do from the presentation piece that are going to make a big difference? One of them is eye contact. We all know as Toastmasters because it's something that we talk about all the time. Eye contact, right? It's that looking like you're only talking to that one particular person. I'm just having a conversation with you right now. These other people, they're listening, but I'm just talking with you. Now, it's a little bit different in this kind of an environment because if I look over here to see Sherry on my screen, well, I'm not looking at Sherry on my screen, am I? Well, I'm looking at Sherry on my screen, but it doesn't look like it because now I'm looking at Sherry. So there's some big differences there. And I've seen people today that have done a very, very good job of keeping that eye contact with the camera. That's a very, very important thing. What is another one? Body language. We just went through a thing with Matthew with body language. If you didn't see that one, I would go back and look at it again. Our body language communicates more than we even recognize or realize. It's that walking out with our head up. It's walking with that confidence that we know that we are the expert. We know we got this. That body language is crucial. It's critical. Gestures. We talked about those. Gestures, and I know it's hard in this the confines of our little bitty screen here to get the gestures in. Gestures are an amazing thing because gestures paint a picture of the words that you're saying. When I'm in a class or I'm in a classroom or I'm in front of a group, a live audience, there are a lot of gestures. And those gestures mean things. And they communicate in a visual way to go along with the words that I'm saying. In one of the classes that I teach, we talk about using gestures in our teaching and coaching with the people we support. And we go through a process where I talk about something and I use the gestures, and then later on I do it without using the gestures and it sounds entirely different. And then I can just go through and do the gestures and people know what I said because the gestures actually painted a picture of what it was that we wanted to do. So I would encourage you, just in general, just general life, every day, use gestures. But don't just do it as an afterthought. Actually do it with intentionality. You're making a point. Let's see, you're making a point. There's a reason we're doing it. Have those gestures mean something. What other stuff comes to mind in some of those?
It's kind of an overall feeling. I like to feel like I'm doing a dialogue with my audience, in which I participate, they participate. A dialogue instead of a monologue. In a monologue, you do all the talking. So there's a big difference between dialogue and monologue. And the most successful people I see are the ones that have dialogue with their audience.
Is it possible that you can have a dialogue without the response, the communication piece? Can we have a dialogue without the other person saying something?
Yes, yes. In my thinking, I would say yes, and that would be a silent gesture. If I'm saying something and you're responding to it by playing with your cell phone or falling asleep, that's a negative dialogue. But you can show me, we can talk to each other by your facial or body expressions. So I would call that a dialogue without words.
I think I would agree with that, Sal. Very definitely. Yeah, when you get that reaction from the audience, when you look at them and you see that you're connecting and the words that you're saying are landing and the recognition is there, then you know that you're connecting with your audience, that you are captivating your audience. What happens if you don't have that? What do you do then? Pack up your stuff and go home?
Can you switch it up?
Yeah.
Somehow switch it up.
So what would that look like? You're not seeing the response, you're not getting the response that you had anticipated or hoped for. How might you switch it up?
Maybe if it's appropriate, put in a little story, a joke, or something to lighten the atmosphere, or if it's, again, appropriate, stumble over some words or something and make a joke about that, or do something that will bring them back, catch their attention again.
Yeah, sometimes I find when I'm in class and I'm just giving out material, and I see some of the faces glaze, kind of like I've seen some of yours, is then I'll stop and put in a story. Find a story that I can put in to kind of break the chain, which is why it's really, really important, and then we learned this in Tony's class, that you have a bank of stories that you can use. I mean, I keep a story journal so that if I have a point that I want to make, I got a story that I can put with it. But yeah, Sharon, you're right. Pull that story out. Anybody else got something if things are starting to go a little flat? Yes, ma'am. Did you raise your hand, Sherry?
I did. Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. What about calling on someone in the audience, asking for some participation?
That's a good idea. In fact, that's kind of what I've been doing here, because my thought was and my intent was that the material itself, or just the conversation without the outside input, might be enough, but it wasn't landing. I wasn't seeing it in your faces. And so we're going to start asking some questions. Make you guys teach the class. That's probably the better way to do it anyway, right, Ed? Let you guys give the answers. Another thing you can do is use pauses when you're in that you're in that mode and you've got a really deep comment, something that really you want to resonate. Don't be afraid to pause. It's perfectly okay. If you're in that story where things are getting really deep and really intense, what I imagine is that I'm walking into a pond with this great big giant boulder. And when I let that boulder go, it's going to start to sink. And as it sinks, it's going to get to a point where it becomes neutrally buoyant. Okay, or maybe it's not a big boulder because that could sink all the way to the bottom. But at some point, whatever I drop in there is going to become neutrally buoyant. And it's at that point that it actually lands. So if I've got a point that I really want to drive home, sometimes it's just best to let it sit. Let it settle. Even if it seems like an uncomfortably long time to you, in your audience's perspective, it's coming in. Okay, so don't just rush over those things when they're the big key points. Your pacing of the words. Start speaking a little bit slower, faster when you're talking about something that's a little more exciting. When you're working in this environment, when you're working through a Zoom meeting, if you have a lot of material to cover or you have a lot of things to do, in this environment, the person with the most energy wins. If you've got something that you're excited about and you have got something that you want to share with people and communicate, you can use that pace to make a big difference. I don't know if you remember Paul Harvey. Remember Paul Harvey? When you'd listen to him, he would draw you in by using the pacing in his voice and the pauses. And you would listen and you would just be glued to what he was saying, and you could imagine the whole scene. Good day, right? We all heard Paul Harvey, didn't we? We grew up with Paul Harvey. Everybody here grew up with Paul Harvey, right? Repetition. Let me say that again. Repetition. Repetition is one of the things that will highlight that point, bring it back, and repeat. Now let me say that again. Let me repeat that. Okay. Repetition is very, very important. When you repeat things, you are telling people this is important. So repetition is one of those good techniques that you can throw in there. Who's got something else? Anybody? Nobody? Okay, we don't have to.
Hi, I was gonna say if this is happening like in person, then if you happen to be still in the behind the lectern or stage, then you can just come out and then kind of walk more space, walking towards the audience, or sometimes you might go down the middle part to kind of get more engagement. Sometimes that makes a little bit more engagement from the audience. Thank you.
That's a very good point, Seiko. Yeah, don't hide behind that lectern. Get out. Let people see you. And I guess the most important, Tammy, did you have a comment? You went off mute.
I was gonna say, in a live presentation, maybe sometimes just a stretch break, getting people to stand up and move around, or in church, passing the peace or something like that would be a good way to maybe kind of reconnect and gather and get people to refocus again. I don't know how you would do that on a Zoom.
I don't know, we could try it. Should we all stand up? The best way to connect is just to be you, because you are the expert and you are the person that people are coming to see. And being you is probably the most important component. You have within you all of the things necessary to connect with an audience. You have all of the things that you need to be an expert in that particular conversation that you're having. You've got it all. You've got something inside you that other people don't. And to be able to bring that out and do that in a way that's just you, just be you. And people will gravitate towards that. we don't like to hear people that we don't connect with because they don't seem very legitimate, or they don't seem, they're kind of superficial. But just being you is probably the best key and the best advice that could possibly be. And have fun. Just have fun. Going out and talking to people and being in front of a group and just going through those motions. When you get that connection and you know that people are really dialed in on what you're saying, and they're grasping on every single word, and you can feel that. Have you felt that when you've been talking to a group, where you look out in the audience and you get that eye contact and you get that feedback? That's amazing. That is so much fun to be in that zone. You see, you are the person that is coming in that can deliver something that is so valuable that people need. So connect, do what you need to do. Like Seiko said, maybe walk out from behind the podium, get out in with the people. Just be yourself and have fun. Have fun. I have to say that when you prepare for something like this and you're doing it with the idea of a live audience, not that you're not alive, because obviously you are. If you weren't, let's see, let me double check. Everybody looks pretty okay from where I sit. But when you're doing that live presentation, you can take the material and you can stretch it out, right? We started at 3 o'clock and we're supposed to go to 4, and it's a 4:45 in a virtual environment. Unless you are doing some involvement things like Sherry did this morning in her session, the material goes a whole lot faster because the attention is different. So I don't know that I'm going to like the results of this survey, because I think I know how I would vote. Be gentle. So one person voted. Okay. Then I guess we got one more. I hope this one works, because I think this is the same type of a poll that didn't work for us before. Maybe I'll try one. And see, all of the things that I said, not all the things, but one of the things that I should have done with this presentation when we went from being in person and into a live audience and we went into the virtual, is that I should have known that my audience is going to want and need more engagement. So what I should have done on focusing with what the audience wants is to find out, or to put pieces in there that can help facilitate that. That was one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about Sherry's presentation this morning, was that we broke out into breakout rooms. And we actually had the class without the presenter there. And then we came back together and brought that together. Looks like the audience stuff is the big thing, huh? That's kind of making me a little dizzy. Okay. And having fun. I don't know. See, you know, working with people like everybody that's in this room, I really am feeling like the imposter because you guys are the ones that are the experts. You know all this stuff. You do all this stuff. We have the conversations about eye contact. We have the conversations about all that stuff. And I think that maybe to summarize the whole thing is just get out there and do it. Feel what it feels like to connect with that audience. When I was first thinking about this, I thought of like a rope. You know, a rope, it's got typically 3 groups of strands. And so you've got one strand that would be knowing your audience. And then you've got another strand that is knowing your material or having your material down pat. You know it, you got it, you are the expert. And then the third piece where you would connect with the audience and the things that you do and being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and actually giving yourself to put yourself in the middle of this situation. And then as you start twisting those together and you twist that rope together, just like making a rope anyway, then you exponentially increase the strength of those strands. And as you do that and you focus on those things, then I think you really have the opportunity to get to a point where by following those 3 core principles, know your audience, connect with your material, and then be the conduit that brings the 2 together, then you'll be connecting and you will be captivating your audience. And they'll be walking away saying, holy cow, that just blew my mind. That was the most incredible thing that I walked away from with that presentation. You guys got this. It's already there. It's already in you. You can do it. And I look forward to opportunities to be in an audience from every one of you to see what you bring to the table.